إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن سيدنا وحبيبنا مولانا سيدنا محمد عبده ورسوله خير نبي اجتباه هدى للعالمين أرسله الله بدين الحق ليظهر على دين كله ولو كره الكافرون. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأزواجه وذريته وأصحابه وتابعين بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد عباد الله، أذكركم وإياي بتقوى الله سبحانه وتعالى. أذكركم بقوله سبحانه وتعالى في القرآن الكريم: يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. وذكركم وإياي بالحفظ القرآن الكريم وسنة سيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا يا رب العالمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Alhamdulillah, we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the blessing of life, for the ability to wake up today and to worship Him. The blessing of Jum'ah, the blessing of reading Fajr, the blessing of reading Surah Al-Kahf, and the other sunnah that are accompanying the day of Jum'ah. All of this is a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the ability to recognize these blessings and the value of these blessings. Ameen. The thought, perhaps, is that a young person grows up accustomed to doing certain things, and that they will grow old doing those same things, and that they will die doing those things. There's an English proverb, and as a Maliki I will say this, and I hope the Hanafis are not offended, but you can't teach an old dog new tricks. It's difficult to make someone change the way they do when they've been doing it for a long time. And that this belief is generally true because in an age in which young people learn things and accept new ideas, after a person becomes less likely to accept change, that thing settles and becomes their behavior. But however, there's an exception to this. And that's if and when Iman establishes itself in a person. Everything changes, and age doesn't pose an obstacle to the reality of Iman, of faith. And there are numerous examples that we can give for this. But let's just look at a few. When their entire outlook changed, when Iman entered their hearts. Looking back, 2008, this country was whipped up into a frenzy about change, if you remember that far back. And it was even put forth as change that we can believe in. Iman nu'minu bih, if you wanted to translate that into English. By a president whose last name sounded like many of the last names that we have. Allah yahdihi wa lana jami'an. May Allah guide him and all of us. And people supported this change. But where did that change bring us? And then some time after that, that change is overturned. But the real change that I want to talk about is that change of La ilaha illallah Muhammadan Rasulullah. And as one of my teachers said, that La ilaha illallah obviously is the affirmation of the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the second half, Muhammadan Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, is how we live in this world. The prophetic example. Islam has that ability to change the things in our lives. But how many times, I'm speaking of a community that I was in prior to coming to MCC, but how many times did I see a brother that would sell drugs in a community, in their own neighborhood, poisoning the people that they grew up with, and sometimes even poisoning their own family members. And as a result of this, perhaps the violence that they were involved in, and they would terrorize people in that area, and then we would hear that that same person is now in that same neighborhood feeding people, absolute strangers, on a Saturday morning with money from their own pocket. That's the power of Iman. The power of Iman is a sister who had a difficult time understanding the love that their parents were giving them as she grew up in a state of defiance, disobedience, avoiding their advice at every opportunity. But then when change happens, when that Iman enters the heart, that same sister now teaches classes on the benefits of honoring and respecting the parents, because Iman has showed her that this is the correct path, this prophetic way, this Muhammadan Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the list can go on and on and on. But the question that I ask myself and that I put forth to us today is, where am I? And what have I allowed Iman to change in my life? Reality is that this nafs, this ego that is inside of every single one of us, will fight and oppose spiritual growth. It'll oppose getting up for Fajr. It'll oppose giving charity. It'll oppose fasting on Mondays and Thursdays. It'll oppose forgiving those that have wronged us, and on and on and on. But in those difficult places is where we'll find the tawfiq from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the assistance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that will get us through those difficult times, if we will allow the light of Iman to be the light in which we look into those dark places, in those difficult challenges. All of the residents of this earth are the servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The difference is whether or not they acknowledge their servitude to Him or not. And to me, that's the reality of إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِقَوْمٍ حَتَّى يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِأَنفُسِهِمْ. That Allah will not change the condition of a people until they first change what is in themselves. A lot of times in conversations that we have with people, is as if they are waiting for Allah to make that first change in them, and then they will become different people. But I can speak to you as a convert that was a conversation that was happening in my head. But until I actually took on the choice to accept Iman and Islam in my life, that change wouldn't happen. And that's no different from any person that is converting to Islam or who is born Muslim. That's the reality of when will we allow that Iman, i.e. al-Islam, to make the changes in our lives that we read about of the illustrious Sahaba or others in our deen. They are no different than us in that way, in that that decision is made, and then the trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala unfolds and brings them to the places where Allah brought them. Imam Ghazali said something incredible to this regard that I always think about. He said, and it made me think about it in this way, that a lot of times I hear people say, oh, I wish I had the Iman of a convert. And I reject that. Because what it does is it now places the onus on the other person and not on me. That they have something special that I don't. It's not the reality. But I can tell you, standing here in front of you, that the difference of what he talked about, Imam Ghazali, he said that I had to put everything that I believed in on one side when he went through this transformation in his life. I had to put everything that I believed in, and I had to ask, why do I believe in Islam? That's that question of Iman. And for me, living 26 years of my life, that I have to come to a day and I have to ask, all of these things that I've been taught, and all of these things that I've understood, and all of these things that I have believed in, i.e. that I had Iman in, I have to put all of those on one side. And I have to put Islam on the other side. And I have to ask myself, what do I believe? And the answer to that question has me standing here now, some 24 years later. And the changes outward, those are easy. I can change my name, I can grow a beard, I can wear a kufi. Those are easy changes. But we're talking about the real changes. The real changes. As we said, and I know people like this. I have met people like this that were poisoning their communities, and Allah guided them, and are upstanding citizens to this day. And they are no different, as I said, than any of us, and all the opportunities are there. Why? Because Allah gave us life. That's why I started off with that. Every single day that we have life is every single day that we have the opportunity to allow that change to happen in our lives. It's as if Allah is calling us every day. The question is, will we pick up the phone or not? And for each person, it will engage us at a different level of where we are in our Iman and the development of our Iman. No one has arrived. No one has arrived. وَاعْبُدُوا رَبَّكَ حَتَّى يَأْتِيَكُمُ الْيَقِينُ. Worship your Lord until yaqeen, conviction, overtakes you. But when you read the tafsir, that conviction is death. Worship your Lord until death overtakes you. So none of us have arrived. None of us have arrived. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be merciful with us and gentle with us. If I think about this Iman and what it has the ability to do, I think about this verse, Surah Al-Baqarah, 2 verses after Ayatul Kursi. Allahu waliyul ladina amanu yukhrijuhum min adh-dhulumati ila an-nur. To me, that's the reality of my standing here in front of you right now. That Allah is the guardian, the protecting guardian of those who believe. He takes them from the darkness into the light. And here, يُخْرِجُهُمْ مِنَ الظُّلُمَاتِ إِلَى النُّورِ. He takes them from the darknesses, actually is what it is because it's the plural. And He brings them to the light, which is singular, Him, نُورُ السَّمَوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ سُبْحَانَهُ وَتَعَالَى. And that darkness is the darkness that exists inside of us, the darkness that is inside of the world that we engage in, and those two meeting, and all these types of things that we find ourselves in. But Allah is there for the people with Iman. Allahu waliyul ladina amanu. Alladhina amanu is the same root of the word Iman. It's the same word, aman. And literally, that is about safety and security. So Allah makes us safe and secure from His disobedience through our Iman. May Allah increase us in Iman. Now, this fight is not easy. This fight is not easy. I'll read the English here. I wanted to read the Arabic, but we're coming a bit shorter on time. But we'll read it here, inshallah. فَلَا تَرُمْ بِمَعَاصِ كَسْرَ شَهْوَاتِهَا. The poet has said, Bambuseri, don't try through sinning to subdue your desires. إِنَّ الطَّعَامَ يُقَوِّي شَهْوَةً نَهِمٍ. Because food only increases sensual desires. وَالنَّفْسُ كَالطَّفْلِ. And the self is like a child. Like when it is nursing. It loves to continue nursing. But when you wean it, it will stop. That's that question right there. That's that question right there. If we continue to do the things that we have done, then we will continue to be the people that we are. If we continue to do the things that we always do, we will continue to be the people that we are. And that's when we can engage ourselves and ask ourselves that question of when will Iman pivot us? And that's an everyday question throughout the day that we're asking. It's not a one time, I've done it. But it's every day until we leave this world at each of those moments. When and how does the Iman dictate the choices that I make in my life? The stories that I wanted to mention here, just as a reminder to see of this Iman, to me, which is just so incredible, is the story of Umar ibn Khattab, and we know this story. But to me, I think of it in this way, that this is the reality of when Iman enters the heart. And I'm not talking about an individual here, but I'm talking about a principle. That this man leaves his house with the most atrocious of intentions. Innamal a'malu binniyat. Actions are by intentions. And he leaves his house with the most wickedest of intentions, which is to kill the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And you know the story. But my point is, what I want to say is that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is turning to a person like this with that type of intention, then what about you who's coming to Jummah and worshipping Him and praying your salat and fasting in Ramadan? What rahmah is going to be poured out on that? That's the power of Iman. That's the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His generosity, in which He is just waiting to give to us at every single moment in our lives. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala awaken our hearts. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala illuminate our hearts so that we're able to see through all of these frivolous things here that block us from engaging and embracing and embodying the reality of Iman. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر لكم ولسائر المؤمنين يقوم يستغفر الله إنه هو غفور رحيم. إن الحمد لله حمدا كثيرا كما أمر وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن سيدنا وحبيبنا مولانا سيدنا محمد عبده ورسوله خير نبي اجتباه وهدى للعالمين أرسله الله بدين الحق ليظهر على دين كله ولو كره الكافرون. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأزواجه وذريته وأصحابه والتابعين والتابعين بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. عباد الله، أذكركم بتقوى الله سبحانه وتعالى، وأذكركم بقول سيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم حيث يقول في الحديث: اتقوا الله حيثما كنتم. وأذكركم بشرف مكان مصطفى صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم حيث يقول الله سبحانه وتعالى في القرآن الكريم: إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما باركت وصليت على سيدنا إبراهيم وعلى آل سيدنا إبراهيم إنك أنت حميد مجيد. الحمد لله. And just so we can have a reference that is not from those that were chosen by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the Sahaba, I remind you of another man, a middle school dropout, did not make it to high school. A child who witnessed the brutal death of his father and his mother committed to an insane asylum at a young age. A man who bounced around from foster home to foster home, living with families that he did not know. A man called to the streets, called to the life of crime, called to all of the trappings and the delusions of this world. A man known as Detroit Red, for his reddish tinge in his hair, developed into a street hustler, a drug dealer, leader of a gang of thieves in Roxbury and Harlem. A man who spent 6 years in prison where he changed his life forever. A change that brought about the end of the outward vices such as smoking, gambling, and illicit relations, and all other forms of deviant behavior. He also brought about change in his life, and he ended the cycle of ignorance. Spending long hours in the library prison reading books, memorizing dictionaries, and participating in debates. Rid himself from all of that had prevented him from realizing his potential, because that's the reality of this challenge of Iman. It's for us to be a better version of ourselves every single day of our life. That's the reality that we want to wake up and work towards. And that's what Iman has us doing. Pushing ourselves to be a better version of ourselves every day. Oh Allah, we ask you for these openings. Ameen. We all know him as Malcolm. Radiyallahu anhu. May Allah be pleased with him. And we all know what he went on to do, but do we really contemplate the change that he underwent? And we ask ourselves, how is the power of Iman changing my life? So alhamdulillah, in closing, just ask ourselves these questions. Look at the strength of what Iman did in placing in this youth of Ali ibn Abi Talib, making him the lion of Allah, and Abu Bakr making him Sadiq, and Khalid making him Saifullah Masool. And to anyone, and should anyone think of these people that they are people of a time gone by, then we need to dispel this illusion and relate the stories of the believers who lived more recently. I just received a message the other day from a young student, college-age student, who thanked us and said that the Umrah trip that you provided us brought about significant change in my life that I can't even tell you or begin to explain to you what it is. It doesn't have to be the story of Omar for each one of us, because each one of us will have that moment in our lives in a reality that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has manifested for us. And each one of them, as we said, should never be downplayed, because each one of us is being given this test, and each one of us has been given the ability of that Iman, because Allah knows what we can endure and what we are ready to handle. And no one is at any lesser degree, but it all exists in the wisdom, the hikmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So alhamdulillah, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless us and to give us tawfiq. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us people of courage. Allahumma arham al-mu'minina wal-mu'minat, al-muslimina wal-muslimat, al-ahya'i minhum wal-amwat, ya arhamar rahimin. اللهم كن معنا ولا تكن علينا أبدا يا رب العالمين. اللهم افتح علينا فتحا قريبا مبينا واسعا فتحا إليك بكرمك ورحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم نسألك الهدى والتقى والعفاف والغنى عن الناس. اللهم إنا نسألك الهدى والتقى والعفاف والغنى عن الناس. اللهم إنا نسألك الهدى والتقى والعفاف والغنى عن الناس. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. ربنا إننا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذريتنا قرة أعين واجعلنا للمتقين إماما. عباد الله إن الله يأمركم بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. يتذكرون. أقيم الصلاة يرحمني يرحمكم الله.